Now, before I turn it over to Christian and Doug, let's go around the league to wrap up the awards from the 25-26 season. Congratulations to Slammers FC and Crossfire Academy, who won the ECNL Girls and ECNL Boys Overall Club Championship. Slammers FC goes back-to-back with their ECNL Girls Overall Club Championship, and Crossfire Academy achieved a three-peat with their ECNL Boys Award. Quick Goal, once again, is the title sponsor for the ECNL Coach of the Year Awards, and the ECNL honored 5 coaches this year for their leadership on and off the pitch. For ECNL Boys, Nate Murphy from the Utah Avalanche. ECNL Girls, Michelle Krisnick with the Michigan Hawks, and Jasmine White, Real Colorado National. ECNL Regional League Boys, Oscar Cruz from the Houstonians. ECNL Regional League Girls, Jimmy Baranuevo, South Florida Football Academy. ECNL Boys and ECNL Girls also had more than 50 athletes named as Gatorade High School Players of the Year, headlined by Maddie DiMaria. The St. Louis Scott Gallagher player was named the Gatorade Girls Soccer Player of the Year for the second time and was named the Gatorade Best Female Athlete of the Year at the 2026 ESPYs. Congratulations to all of the 25-26 ECNL award winners, and good luck to all the clubs competing in the ECNL this upcoming season. This has been Around the League. Now we turn it over to Christian Lavers and Doug Bracken.
Mr. Bracken, welcome back to Breaking the Line.
We are back, and we are getting ready to start the new season, which is exciting. School starting. What's going on in the Lavers house with the school starting?
We had
chaos
last week of school.
Started? Okay.
It started last week.
Okay.
Very early out here on the West Coast. Actually, one of the things that really strikes me, you hear about this in coach education earlier, but sometimes actually you don't hear about it probably as much as you should, or at least when I did the courses. But I've noticed it now that I have kids. When you start adding school back into the schedule, it's tough for the kids. It's a lot of extra stress, energy, whatever. And then they show up at practice at the end of the day. You know, that first week or two of school has an impact on what happens at soccer training, which I probably did not understand or manage, as a earlier, younger coach, that having kids going through it and seeing what happens at 6 a.m. and what happens at 9 o'clock at night between summer and the start of school it's a aha.
Yes. A little bit out of sync with the rhythms of the world when they first start. My kids are my last two, both in high school now, same building. Last school building they'll be in, which is interesting. But they start on Wednesday.
I mean, so they're not going to go to college, go get a graduate degree or a PhD.
Yes,
You
but
put
there are
put a lid on them.
Many buildings on a campus. I was just thinking this one single
Schoolhouse
building, yes, schoolhouse, if you will. But yes, they're into it on Wednesday. I'm sure, to your point, there will be some rhythms that will
There'll be some fatigue-driven behavior.
Yes.
The other thing that always hits me at this time of the year is, and this is also a comment on the importance of sports and culture, is for me, some of the most powerful memories of the fall were the start of high school soccer. Because when I played high school soccer it was a fall sport. And so always early August was when you start preseason, and then you get into your fall. Friday Night Lights wasn't football, obviously. For us, it was soccer under the lights at high schools, and so the fall season always brings out not only just the college football and NFL season and all the other stuff that starts in the fall, but the high school soccer preseason time always comes into my head at this time of year. I don't know if you have similar memories or not.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this will ring a good bell for you. And I'm sure you're like, I'm not sure I knew that people were still doing that. My 16-year-old, who's a sophomore, ran the Cooper test this morning.
The Cooper.
7:45 a.m.
What's that? That's how far you can run in 12 minutes?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
So
I remember, I'll tell you a story on that. I remember we did that back in the 90s, and one of the guys was running around the high school track, and one of them on whatever lap, 2 or 3, just kept running straight out the fence and didn't come back.
Uh, were you good? Were you a good runner, or were you more like I play soccer and I run because I have to play
Oh,
soccer?
and in high school, I hated running. The
Oh, you
concept
did.
of
Okay.
running for running's sake was complete heresy. I then got my fitness packet at the University of Wisconsin, and I
Oh
remember
yeah.
like a week before preseason, I did a run, and I remember coming home saying I didn't know I had muscles in that part of my body, because it's so sore. But then in college, I learned the importance of being
Yeah.
super fit, and hit my peak fitness at that point, which I've looked back on fondly and wish I could be anywhere close today.
Just sure. I was always pretty. I always liked running. I know it sounds wild, but so I always that part of it didn't bother me that much. But I did feel for him this morning when I woke him up at 7 a.m. to go run the Cooper test. But
You
yes,
know,
we are in fall sports here. My youngest is a golfer on the high school team, and then my sophomore is on the soccer team. So they've already played one regular season game. Actually, their first game was last Friday. Um, we're in it. We're in it.
I was listening to the Nike Run Club guy, Coach Bennett, at a presentation a couple weeks ago, and he made a comment of running wants you to come and have fun, and he said most people who say they hate running are running too fast. And that comment hit me because I still don't like running, but I
Okay.
do run occasionally, mostly out of the fear that if I stop running, I'll never run again, and that's not a good outcome. But
Yeah.
when he made that comment about most people don't like running or running too fast, I was like, that actually it might be the first productive comment somebody's ever made that I heard about running, and I
Yeah.
slowed down a little bit, and I hated it less actually when I when
Okay.
I
All
when
right.
I ran a little slower.
All right. Yeah. A lot of that 80-20 rule has come into, a lot of the forefront now where the 80% is really kind of almost painfully slow. It's supposed to be painfully slow. And the 20% is where you put it in. So it's interesting. But yes, at our advanced age, Christian, because
Well, we don't coach.
you are now in the club. You are
We
officially in the
This is true,
50
although we don't
50s.
coach a sport that involves long distance running at the same speed. So
Okay.
that 80-20 rule is not going to help me in my coaching education. It may help me in my just fight against obesity,
Yeah,
but not in coach education.
fair enough. So since we said we're starting the season, we wanted to have a little conversation about, I don't know, let's call it do's and don'ts.
New
And
year do's and don'ts, start of the year do's and don'ts, club,
yeah,
parent, coach, everybody involved.
everybody's got to be involved, right? You can't have one person on the rules of do's and don'ts and not other people. That's not fair. So
You
um,
might have just said your first do's and don't.
that's right. Do be fair to everyone.
There we go.
Don't be unfair to everyone, I guess is that's it. So um, I wanted to just I guess let's start by I'm just going to say rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
I'm the moderator, if you will. Give me some parent. Well, let's start with club. Let's start with club. Let's go club slash coach dues,
Do's.
because
Okay.
you are coaching a team in a
Do's.
club. Yeah, dues.
Yeah, we've actually been having some conversations because now is also around the time of the year that a lot of clubs get their coaches together again for some type of alignment,
Yeah,
whether it is administrative or whether there's some type of coaching workshop. Um, those things tend to be top of mind and happening at the beginning of the season as people are kicking off and they've got the fresh lookout. Um,
yeah,
and it makes you say, hey, what are the things that we used to do and we don't do anymore? What are the things that we need to do, maybe for the first time, to create a really good environment? And so I would say a couple of do's. One do for sure, as I think clubs need to have some type of, I don't want to make it as grandiose as a mission statement or a vision statement, because I think those can get, and I think they're really important, by the way. But I think some sort of just reminder, maybe whether you call it North Star or just like a
Yeah,
foundation
something
of
that anchors you.
what are we doing here as
Yeah,
coaches,
yeah,
right? What is important here in this club? And also within that, because it can be different, what is important with the teams or the ages that you are working at? And it, like I said, it can be very different if you're the U17 ECNL team versus the U9 fifth or sixth team. But I think having some understanding of what are the baseline expectations that the club has for the coaches, and how does that translate into a player journey over the course of the year, so that people kind of have something to go back to. I mean, I use, I think those things are most helpful in stressful moments, right? Whatever that stressful
yeah.
moment for you is as a coach, whether it's an issue about playing time or whether it's a decision about how important is this particular game, or whether you feel you're being attacked by somebody. Like at that point, having a ability to draw back on what am I here for? What is the club really expecting the player experience and my role in it to be, I think can be really helpful. So I put that on a club level
Do
of
you, let
alignment.
me ask you this on that, because I was thinking a lot about this, because I knew you were going to say this. Because I know that we, and you particularly, worked hard to come up with a really accurate and thoughtful mission for the ECNL.
Multiple variations of that over
We've
time until
yes,
we finally got it
we've
right.
had iterations, and we've landed on what I think is really good, and I think about it all the time. And that is, to provide the best youth sports experience in the world. And so everything we do, it has to be in that way, grounded in that way. Do you think that it's, given the number of coaches, let's say at your club, at my club, or whatever, that there are, and the different levels of experience those coaches have or don't have, do you think it is possible to get everybody thinking that way?
Yeah, as a base level, that's the power of a really good vision statement, right? Is that you don't argue with it. Our vision in the league to provide the best youth sports experience in the world. First of all, why is that a good vision statement? We all can say it almost verbatim,
Yeah.
right? That was some of the problems we had in the past, right? Is it was too verbose, as they would say, or it was too wordy, and it was not easy to remember. If it's not easy to remember, then it fails, because when you say, "Hey, what's the vision here?" and people say, "I don't know," then, well, that's the point. The other part of it is it has to be big enough that it's almost a like, well, of course, of course we would do that. Now, how that is carried to life or brought to life within the 8-year-old program or the 12-year-old program or the 18-year-old or the first team versus the last team in an age, whatever, may be very, very different. But I think, we're in youth sports, right? So in some ways, I would say one of the things that's got to be always front and center is, are we providing an experience that has a positive impact on kids, on families, on whatever? And you can probably come up with a variety of different um, ways of saying that, could be nuanced to your club or that. But I think if you talk from that really, really big picture level, yes. Is it possible that you're going to have alignment, that every coach has the same philosophy and the same, processes for how they plan training and exercise training and how they interact with players? No, I actually don't even think you would want that, right? I don't know what your thoughts are. I think having variety and having people be true to themselves within a bigger context is what you're looking for.
So let's drill down on that. On the dues for a coach, how important is it for a coach to have their own coaching philosophy?
Really important. I mean, I was having this conversation with some people today that at the end of the day, the impact on players, the club sets the stage, right? The club provides guardrails. The club can provide resources, right? The club can make things a little bit easier or a little bit harder, depending
Right.
on how you look at it. But ultimately, it is the coach that has the impact on players. The guy who's there, the girl who's there every day, who's at training and games, who is the one talking, interacting, getting to know the kid and the family. And so I think as a coach, you need to have some core beliefs of how you want to be and how you want to engage and the type of environment you want to create. And I think some of that might be, again, general and big picture, regardless of the type of player that you're interacting with. And then some of it may be very different depending on the age and level of the player
Yeah.
that you are. What we were talking about the other day with some coaches is, there needs to be a specific narrative for every player in the club. And that narrative is about how that coach interacts with that player to meet them where they are and then move them in the direction they want to go, help move them in that direction. And that can be very, very different, not only just on things like age and level, but on based on what might be going on in that kid's life, based on what's important to that kid to be doing in addition to soccer, based on times of the year where different things may come up, make based on challenges that are unique that player faces, whether they're personal, family, economic, social. Um, so we were talking a lot about that, the reason I sort of dive off into that area is because ultimately the only way you can have a narrative, an individual narrative for every player, is if you have a coach who is really engaged specifically with that player, that team, that group of families, and that coach understanding what their role is and what type of environment they want to create there.
Okay. So that's our first two. Our first two dues are clubs need to have a unified mission, right, of what they're trying to accomplish. And then a coach needs to have a kind of a defined philosophy on how they are going to be.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, and tell me where you expand or change on this, but I'm also more and more in the like, let's not talk about things that we know aren't going to happen. And what I mean by that is I think sometimes coaches and clubs also and I know I've certainly been there. You get wound up on things that you talk about that you say are very important, but they're really, really difficult to do. And because of that, they don't really happen very much. So for example, we were talking about style of play, right? And having a club style of play and what are the do's and don'ts or goods and bads on that. And it occurred to me, first of all, almost everybody, if you said, what's your style of play? They're going to talk about some dominance of the ball, right? Oh, we want to play pretty soccer, attractive soccer,
Yeah, right.
decision-making soccer, whatever. No,
Tiki taka.
nobody says whack it and win. Okay. But they're always going to say that. But, and that sounds really good. Oh, great. But how do you first of all, it's not possible for everybody
Not possible.
at all. And if it's not possible because maybe you're the small club surrounded at a level of competition, and the clubs that you play on a regular basis are significantly better than you are,
Well,
right? You're not going to dominate the ball.
let me just stop you because you're a layer even deeper than I would say. It's not possible because most of the coaches that are at these youth clubs are part-time. They have another job or whatever. And coaching development at the youth club level is not that prescribed. I mean,
Well,
it's that
to the
unified in order for you to implement something like that.
correct. And the reason I brought up this is because if you can't I accurately identify what is realistic and what is likely to happen or not happen, then you can't actually effectively intervene in the environment. And what I mean by, to use your point there, is if you're expecting your part-time coaching staff who have jobs during the day and families, presumably, if you're expecting them to have an inordinately elaborate training design plan and to be meticulously following whatever methodology that you espouse, which that's another one I'll put an immediate asterisk on,
Yeah.
of that people talk more about than what they probably have. But if you're expecting somebody who's running from work to practice, who's got families, to be sending you his or her sessions for the week with graphics of the layout and the coaching points that they're going to bring out every day, and you say, this is what we do in our club, I'm going to call bullshit.
Yeah. Or trying to execute uh exercises and or training sessions that you provide them that they may
Correct.
not be comfortable with, right?
Correct. And
Two ways.
so let's use it. And by the way, we're not saying that that wouldn't be best practice. Okay.
Correct. That's
Best
not
practice.
reality.
Yeah. Best
It's
practice would be
just it's just like it's not reality for some teams to keep the ball and play pretty.
correct. So
Right.
we're starting with, let's identify reality and fantasy and say that, okay, best practice would be all the coaches meeting in the morning, talking about where their team is at, what happened in the last couple days, brainstorming session design, sharing it with each other, and then going out later that day and executing on the sessions that they talked about, shared about, exchanged with each other. And then the next day they reflect on those, talk about what worked, and then do the same thing again. That's best practice. That might happen in pro academies. I mean, it does happen in pro academies, but
Yeah.
it's not happening with part-time coaches. Okay.
Correct.
And in a lot of places, it's not happening with full-time coaches, considering all the other stuff that they have saddled on to the coaching. But if that's best practice, well, let's not impose that on part-time people who can't do it. And if we're pretending to do it, then we're not actually accomplishing anything. And to me, it's more than, okay, if this is the reality and the constraints, right? Everybody's into constraints-based coaching. If these are the constraints my coaches are working under, how do I do something that I really feel confident will move the needle for them? Right? So I'm not going to expect them to send me their elaborate training sessions every day, every week. But maybe I'm going to give them some tools that say, hey, operate within these boundaries. Okay. And then I can monitor that a little bit, and then I can tighten the boundaries here and there over time as I see them. But I give them something that says, these are really big do's and don'ts. And I'm not talking about big picture, club operations or safety issues. I'm saying these are do's and don'ts and how we want you to run your teams and how you want to design sessions. Beyond that, it's up to you. And then as I maybe watch you over time, I can help you a little bit more. But if
Yeah.
I'm still in the world, if I expect them to send an email to me every day showing me their session, well, first of all, even if they do that, unless I plan on responding and reviewing and giving feedback, then what's the point of sending the session email? Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think people forget that. It's like, do all this stuff. And then when people don't get feedback, if you keep submitting something and never get feedback, what do you do eventually? Just stop.
Stop. Yeah.
Right. And now it's like, you don't mean what you say. I don't do what you say,
Right.
but we've got best practices.
Right.
It's silliness.
So, all right. So let's try to stay on track on this. So now I'm going to say what, because you talk about that unified mission, coaching philosophy,
Which can be informal. It doesn't have to be the most
Yeah.
perfect thing, but at least spend some time thinking about that and talking about that.
Correct. And then, again, I think you kind of touched on this, but it's important for the club to share with their coaches kind of what their general beliefs are.
Yeah.
So that they can function in those guidelines. So I'm going to say the next do for a club is, and this I think just doesn't happen enough, is to communicate those things to the parents.
Yeah.
I always say this, and I probably said this on this podcast before. There's three parts of this, of what the players. There are three players in this development.
The player,
process.
the parent, and the coach.
The parent, the player, and the coach, right? And to ignore the fact that the parent is part of that is
Well, and let's think about that too, Doug, because you're right. And when you're early on as a coach, you're probably very, very, the thing you hear more than anything is have a preseason meeting, right? And then as you get on and you get into the role of things, I think sometimes people forget to do that. But let's unpack that a little bit because that used to be harder to do. Okay, you had to reserve a conference room, cost
right.
money. Then you had to get people to get in their car and go somewhere in addition to the training they normally go to. You have to get mom or dad or both to add that into their schedule. Um, Obviously, in person, like anything, is probably the most impactful. But there was real challenges with that. So if you can't do that, then you have, well, now you have unbelievable technology
Yeah.
with
Zoom.
Zoom
Yeah.
and whatever other one you want to use, where you can actually reach these people in their car, at the dinner table, as they're sitting in their backyard. There's no excuse not to do it. And when we talk about sharing that with parents, I remember going to the directors of coaching course that United Soccer coaches used to do. Okay, and I went to that course once, and then I taught some of those courses, and I really really enjoyed it. Thought it was a really good course. And one of the things that was said in that course, and I think it was Andrew Donnery who made this comment, is if you're going to present to parents in who are a lot of them are professionals, and you're going to say, here's what we do here, here's what my expectations are, here's what your expectations can be aware of the context within how you do that. Because if you do that on the side of the field, 10 minutes after practice, where you're sweaty and hot, the parents are slapping mosquitoes who are buzzing around. The kids are running around on the field, and you're trying to say this is a really professional organization and this is how you should, what you should expect. It's a really jarring disconnect.
Yeah.
The perfect scenario is in person in a ballroom with a presentation, and it's everybody says, "Wow, there's a lot of thought into this. It's very professional." Well, that's hard for the reasons we went to, but now Zoom and things like that give you the perfect balance because you can schedule it at night when you can be in front of a computer and look not exhausted, where you can put together a presentation that is professional and you don't have to bother the parents with additional time demands on their schedule. And it's a really, really smart thing to do. And yet, I wonder how many people are still having meetings by the side of the field with mosquitoes slapping and then saying, well, this is a really professional organization.
Or worse, saying, I'm the coach. I don't need to answer your questions.
Yep.
This is what I
Worst.
do.
That is the worst.
Yeah.
That is the worst.
Right. And then
And we've all probably been there at one point in our life,
yeah,
but it's not good.
no, I mean, confrontation is meeting the truth head on. I mean, you're gonna have that I mean, that's coaching. I mean, you're confronting players all the time or whatever. So you have to be able to deal with that. I would just go again, the one other part to what you're saying is yes, it's important to stand in front of these people who you are selling what you're offering and tell them what you're going to do and what you believe and how we're going to do it. And then I think beyond that, I think it's important to check in from time to time and say, here's just a review. This is what we talked about at the beginning of the season. Here's where I think we are. And
Yeah.
this is what I'm seeing. And just it's a non like it's it's a way to kind of hold their hand through the process.
Yeah, I,
A
I
little
used
bit.
to say I used to say that compare the formal communication networks and the informal communication networks. And what I meant by that is a formal communication network within a club is from the director to the coaches and the coaches to other coaches when they're, meeting and talking about what we do, how we do it, whatever.
Right.
Those are very formal.
Sure.
Then there's a formal communication from the coach to the parent. Okay, and whether that's in the form of that preseason meeting or whether that, to your point, is the periodic updates and information of, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what I see. This is what I hope you're looking for. This is what you can reinforce, which is
Yeah.
really, I think, an underappreciated asset of what can you reinforce as a parent instead of guessing. Um, but if you do a really good job in those formal communication networks, from DOC to coach to coach, and coach to team, what you, I think, end up seeing a lot is that the informal network starts to mirror the messaging. Because if the parents at all the teams are hearing similar things, because the coaches are doing a really good job of outlining, this is how we do it here. And if they even just look it down to a base level in a team, if the coach is doing a really good job of communicating effectively with the parents as a group,
Yeah.
then the odds of the parent to parent communication being aligned with that are infinitely higher.
Oh yeah.
And if you don't do a good job in the formal networks, the parent to parent informal network or the parent to child, and I say informal because you're not in charge of that
Yeah. Right.
communication as a coach, what parents say when you're not around, what
Yeah.
parents say to their kid when you're not around. If you don't do a good job in the formal, then the informal's all over the place, and
Yeah.
that's where you start to see problems.
Agreed. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do here. Do you know what they're trying to do here? Right. So,
Correct.
so communication is huge.
It's
And
the number one skill of a coach.
yes, making people understand, first having some grounding ideas in your own world, whether it be club wise or you personally, and then being able to communicate and help people understand what you're about to do and how you're about to do it. Super important. What else? Anything else come to mind on the dues front?
Um, I think if we zoom back out, I would say what you're going to do and then make sure you do what you say.
Yes.
And that probably wraps up a lot of those things. If you
Make the
say things that are
things,
unrealistic, you're not going to do
yes,
them.
right. Make the things you say you're going to do realistic
Correct.
because you can get
That's
yourself.
the old under promise and over deliver, right?
Yeah.
If you promise the world, you're already setting yourself up for just identify what's important, commit to doing what's important, tell them what is important and what you're going to do, and go do it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of things are trending in a good direction.
Agreed. Okay. Um, a lot of the don'ts are probably the opposite of what we just said, but any don'ts that come to mind that we didn't already address by saying do this?
I don't know. Um, I'm sure I'm going to forget some like big mistake somebody's made. But you know, we just said communication is the number one skill of a coach. I think if anyone argued with that, it would be about the number one communication being listening or observing, right? And so if we take that perspective, and I think it's maybe a different way of saying what you do. What you're saying is you need to also be able to listen and hear from the players in the session, obviously, and what their experience is like, but also listen and hear to what the parents are saying,
Yeah.
right? Whether that's to you or about you or, passed along. I think, you have to be able to hear that so you can assess whether an intervention is required. And when I say intervention, I mean, a step into that to fix it
Yeah.
or to correct it.
Yeah.
So I would say the biggest don't I would say is don't put yourself in an echo chamber or in a vacuum where you're then not able to hear and see some of the feedback that people may give you as players, parents, or whatever when they're in your environment. Because some of that's going to be verbal and some of that might not be verbal.
Yeah, that's true. The one other thing I want to add to this, because I think this is really important. I think it's really important to have a respectful, and it's good to have a friendly environment, right? It's
Yep.
good if it's approachable, if it's friendly. That I think is really important. What is also very, very important is that there is a line between you as the coach and the parents.
Yeah. A professional
Because
line.
a professional line, because when you have personal relationships, friendships, whatever, you are putting yourself in a really bad spot. And it almost never turns out well. So,
Well, I'd clarify that and say, when you mix the personal and the professional is when it becomes problematic, right? When you believe that the parents of the players you are coaching are going to be as much your friend as they are the parent of an athlete. That confusing that line is a big mistake,
yes,
right? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be, to your point, approachable, respectful,
friendly.
friendly, and open to
Yeah,
discussion, right?
sure.
Because it's one of these things like you can always ignore. That's your ultimate prerogative.
Yeah,
If
right.
somebody suggests what they would like you to do or what they thought you did
Yeah.
wrong, you can always disagree and
My
ignore.
my saying for that is thanks for your input.
Yeah, and listen, but if you're not open to input, number one, you're not going to be able to correct things when they're small, and then they tend to hit you harder when they're big. But you also then create other unintentional issues of being aloof and observe and somebody that nobody understands what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how to communicate with you. The flip of that on the other end is pretending that everybody's drinking buddies from college,
Right.
and that 1 minute there's going to be a tough decision about a kid starting or playing or making a team or not making a team, and the next minute everybody should be cheersing
Yes.
and saying,
Or
those are
allowing
tough.
someone to monopolize your time,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Um, so keeping that line and that space, I think, is important from that professional perspective. And you see that, you know, a lot, particularly with young coaches, where they
Yeah.
they they can't manage that, and
Well, and
it doesn't
that
end well.
problem, that problem usually occurs when, and this is ironic, the seeds of problem are created in times of sunshine. Okay. When
Right,
everything's going well at the beginning of the year, or, whenever it's going well, and everybody kind of relaxes and says, "Oh, this is great. Everybody's on the same page and we're all friends and it's all funs and whistles and rainbows."
right,
That's when those lines get blurred. And then when the inevitable rainy period occurs and a kid has a tough moment or the team goes through a bump, then some of that informality or personalization that happened in the front end becomes a problem later on. Because everybody tends to be. I think this is a fairly safe generalization, but when things are going a little bit more difficult, everybody tends to have their quote unquote professional, backup a little bit, like the 48-hour rule. What's the 48-hour
yeah,
rule? Don't talk about playing time within 48 hours of the game, right? Why?
yeah.
Because that tends to be when things are negative. So everybody's got this professional
Emotional,
line,
yeah. There's emotion
right?
in it. Yeah,
This,
yeah.
the 48-hour rule doesn't apply when they win a trophy and everybody's high-fiving and super happy and every kid scored and played every minute. You know what I mean?
Yes. If you were to give, ooh, this is going to put you right on the spot here. You're good on your feet, so we're going to find out.
We'll
If
see.
you were to make, if you were talking to me, I am getting into the world of youth sports as a parent, Christian. I'm taking my kid on this journey. What are 5 things you would tell me?
Five.
I'm going five.
Five things.
5 things you would tell me.
All
And
right.
well,
Well, the
let's
first
call it elite youth sports because just make it like that. Five.
five things.
I wrote my 5 down ahead of time, so you got put in a bad spot here.
All right. Well, I've going through this transition of being the person to tell parents and what expectations there are from the perspective of a coach and a director to now being on the other end of that as well, and having kids at very young ages, but still kids going into that and being in other people's environments now,
Yeah.
and feeling all the feels that you get as a parent, of kids on game day practice, whatever, as their ups and downs go. So, I guess number one, as I say that, is there will be ups and downs. So buckle in and try and minimize the height and depth of the ups and downs. All right. And what I mean by that is I think the people who get over the top excited when things are going great are the people who the whole world implodes on when anything goes wrong. And so part of
Yes.
the role of being the adult parent in the room is your kid's going to be on a ride, no matter how good the environment, there's going to be times that are hard for them. And your job is to smooth that ride out as much as you can. You don't want it to be unemotional, because I think emotion is a critical part of sport. I think it's what the part of sport that makes it fun. But you want to manage the variance, from good to this was tough.
Yeah. And they're
So,
watching. So when you or
oh
when
yeah,
we as parents react in that way,
it's like a kid when they
they
fall
will.
down and they're not hurt, but it was kind of a scary fall, and they're looking at you like whether they should start crying or not.
Yeah.
And you look and say, "Hey, get up," and then they get up, or you say, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And then they just burst
Yeah.
into tears, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say that might be number one. I might change my opinion on order, as we go through this, but I think that would be number one, is figure out how to smooth the process. Number two, I think, would be it's long term, and that's probably correlated with number one. But
Yeah.
whatever the up and the down is today is not going to matter as much in a week, a month, and a year. And that the goal here, long term, needs to be clear. And for most people, I think it's, you want your kid to love sport, stay in sport, be inspired by sport, work hard to do all the things that sport demands, like be fit, eat healthy, learn to compete, be a good teammate, all that sort of stuff. Even when you have outcome goals, right? Or your kids have outcome goals, if they want to play at this level or that level. Um, it is a long-term process. I don't like that phrase, it's a grind, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because I
It's
mean,
fun.
first, it's fun, it's
Like when
sport. And
people, this is a tangent, but when people say or used to say, "Oh, college soccer, man, it's a job. It's a job." I'm like, what do you mean it's a job?
yeah,
So you get to do something you love to do.
yeah,
Is
I
it
think that
hard? Yes, but it's not a job.
I think that framing and that term and that phraseology is not helpful, right? Because it frames it in a unpleasant, hard, you know, I'm just gutting it out. And again, there's parts of that in every part of our life, but that's not why kids don't sign up for things for the grind. They sign
Yeah,
up
right.
because they love it and they're inspired. And so I think reminding yourself, and this is probably especially true in those moments of short-term difficulty, adversity, whatever it may be, it is a very long process. And the goal at the end is the same for almost everybody. And to take a breath and trust that time is a really powerful thing. So whether the adversity is, your kid's physical development puts them in a tough spot because they're the littlest or they're the youngest. I mean, we're dealing with that right now, right? With the age change. You
Yeah.
have kids that are born in you know,
My son went from being the youngest player on his team to being the oldest player on his
well,
team.
and my son went the opposite. He went from being right in the middle, he's born in late June, to being
Yeah.
the absolute youngest. And
Yeah.
so, so I use that as that's an adversity that's nobody's fault. It
Right.
happens. And by the way, it doesn't just happen when there's age group change cutoffs. It happens just based on hormones and when bodies decide to grow. Um, but when that happens, there will be tough moments where, hey, maybe your kid is small and not powerful at all. And that has an impact on the performance, and that has an impact on their playing time, and that has an impact in so many different ways. And clubs can handle it well or not well. but that's going to go away eventually, right? So even in that moment, saying, okay, this is a moment of time,
Yeah.
and I have to remind myself that it's a moment in time so that I don't go down this sort of, you know, whirlpool to the bottom of, oh my gosh, this is happening and that causes that and that and that and that. And we're in this as this parade of horribles, as I used to say. So I would say number two is have long-term perspective. How am I
Okay.
doing so far?
Well, I had marathon, not a sprint on
Okay,
mine. So
good. So
same.
you got
Same.
time to be witty with your
Yeah, that's
statement.
true. That's true. That's true.
Number three, and I may struggle on this one, but what I would say is if you have concerns or if you have worries or questions, just be honest and ask. If you ever have to say, I'm not that parent, then you are. If you have to try and figure out a way to say your concern that doesn't really identify your concern, you're already you're already off in the wilderness. Like I think almost every coach tries to do a good job. Every coach makes mistakes.
Yeah.
If you have a concern,
By the
you
way,
might
every parent makes mistakes
correct,
as a
correct.
parent or as at their job.
Yep. And so this maybe better put, this is give some grace and expect some grace because you're going to make a mistake. The coach is going to make a mistake. The best way to deal with those things is just one, if it's a big enough deal, then talk about it, but talk about it professionally and talk about it, unemotionally. But there's a lot of things that you might think are a mistake in the short term or in the moment that upon further reflection, even if it is a mistake, it's really not that big of a deal. And maybe you just let it go because nobody does well with somebody following them around. We talk about this with social media and kids, right? Like there's cameras everywhere. If you follow somebody around all day with a camera, you're going to find that they do some stupid stuff, or
Right.
they make stupid mistakes, right? At the end of the day, nobody's going to do well if every time there's a mistake, you feel the need to bring it up, or every time that you have the first inkling of a potential issue, you say, well, now I've got to step in and have a conversation. So I would say have a little bit of grace, expect a little bit of grace as well, because even when you're talking about when clubs talk, say, hey, don't coach from the sideline. Okay, the first time somebody yells something from the sideline is probably unnecessary for the club to crack down and the coach to, get all over that parent. Give them a little grace. They got heated in a moment. They got excited in a moment. Now if it's happening every couple of minutes, well, that's a different scenario. So,
Right.
that's a really simple, silly example of it. But I guess that give and get some grace.
Get some grace. Okay. You got three.
Or, um, I could wax poetic and philosophical here. My wife would probably tell me to enjoy the experience because it's going to go fast.
I wrote
And
that. That is on my list.
yeah, and I say that as I'm, now a couple years in, even to coaching one of my sons and enjoying it more than I did, but also knowing there's a time window for that, that at some point closes, and I think on a lot of these things, I'm reminded of, and I don't know the verse, but you know, it's the Bible verse. This is the day the Lord has made. And I remember reading once where it said, the experiences of this day are here for you to learn something. And if you don't learn it, you might just keep repeating this day over and
Groundhog Day.
over.
Right.
So maybe take a step back. This is something I have to tell myself, by the way. It's like self-help session here. Um, Maybe take a step back and just reflect and say, what can I take from this experience? And I think most of the time that should be really positive.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's harder, but I think in this as well is recognizing that, I think I might have said this. I saw a cartoon once that said, one day everybody went out to play with their friends for the last time and nobody knew it. And
Sure.
that I don't know why that hit me hard when I saw that because we're always so busy thinking about what's next and how we plan the next thing, and we're complaining or overly critical of what's happening now. And then one day you don't have to worry about the next thing because it's over. And
Yeah.
then you look back and say, well, wait a minute, did I even enjoy this ride? And if the answer is no, then that's a really sad thing. So I think that that would be the other part of it, is recognize that in the end, every player stops playing at some point. Even if they make it to the highest level, they stop playing at some point. Most don't make it to the highest level. Most don't make it even to the top of whatever level they're shooting for.
Yeah. Yeah.
So enjoy that, because it is really, and you know this with your own kids, watching your kids play is fun.
Yes.
Watching what I was watching my middle son the other day, and he's in playing in a game, and he's sort of checks in and out, with his attention because he's 8, and one of his teammates is running to goal, and looks like he's going to score, and he runs by my son, and as he gets closer to the goal, I just see my son smile. He just lights up with a smile watching his teammate, thinking he's going to score. This is really cool. Not thinking, how should I move to help him?
Right. Right.
Not thinking maybe I should run for a rebound. Not thinking anything except this is really cool. And I just sat there, and it hit me, because I'm like, that is a young kid who just loves standing right in the field where he is right now, in the middle of this, where he's contributing nothing in this moment, but he is loving it, and
He is adding to the joy of it.
he's adding to the
So
joy.
he's adding something.
Yeah, but it just, that hit me as a moment of, man, we got to enjoy these things, because that purity. I mean, how often do people talk about the jadedness of the teenage athlete? Somewhere they go from celebrating every goal like it's a World Cup final, and every trophy like it's the greatest thing ever. And in their mind, every goal they scored was like the greatest goal scored in the history of the game, to, not feeling that.
Yeah, I don't know if they don't feel it. I just don't know if
It's not cool to celebrate, at
society
least.
allows it
Yeah.
to be cool to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's more. They're a lot more self-conscious.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're 10, you have no self-awareness, right? You're just
Yeah.
doing your thing. All right, you got a fifth.
I'm going to take the fifth, and I'm going to, because I think those four actually, as I feel pretty good about those four, Doug.
Okay,
I
I
think
think
you
you've
should
done
give me a
well on
good
your
grade
feet,
for that.
moving on your feet. Yep, good job.
I'm going to take the fifth, and I'm going to kind of tie it to a thing for coaches to be aware of, and a thing for parents maybe to look for. And that is informational content of the coach. And what I mean by that, and there's this famous study from John Wooden back in the 70s, where they tracked him at a bunch of practices about when he talked, when he intervened in the environment with the players, what was it? Was it praise? Was it scolding? Was it informational? You know, was it motivational? Whatever it may be. And basically the finding in that study, and it's been replicated with other coaches in other sports, but the finding was 75% of the things came out of his mouth had an informational component that was actionable. Do it this way.
Right.
Don't do it that way. Hey, I told you do it this way. Or hey, that's exactly the way I, told you to do it. Good job. Or you did it this way. That's not the way to do it. Do it this way. And that, I mean, as I say that, it sounds overly simplistic. But if you want to evaluate a coach and get a sense of what the environment is like from a learning perspective, I think informational content, and when you hear the coach speak, how much is emotion versus how much is actionable information.
Okay.
And that is not joysticking. That's not telling the kid every decision to make. It is giving them information that they can process and then choose to apply. And I would say, if you're evaluating a coach and evaluating an environment, far more than, win-loss records of the coach or the team or whatever would be, is most of what the coach said informational and actionable so that the kids can learn from it and get better.
Yeah. All right, that's a good five. I had a couple different ones. One of mine was make sure you're aligned philosophically,
Agree with that.
because if you're
You've always
not,
been strong on that.
yeah,
I've heard you say that in a lot of different circumstances,
yes,
even as a coach in an athletic department or as an assistant coach with a head coach.
yes,
But yes, I agree. If you come in and you philosophically want something very different than what the coach of the club does, it ain't going to go well.
it isn't going to go well. I would say remember that it's the player's journey, not your journey, and and support your kids' motivation to do what they're doing, not your motivation for them to do it, right? Because it should be about their passion. Although, and I almost think like as parents, we're put on this kind of earth to for our kids to just help them navigate, not to navigate for them, but to help them navigate, right? And say, hey, I've made that turn before and this was the outcome. And then they're going to determine whether they make that turn or not. So remember, it's your kid's journey. And then the other ones were similar to yours. So we're close, pretty close. Okay, here's another one. Do you have, or what would you say if you were asked to think about this? Do you have some parent to player? So this is Christian Lavers, the parent, to the player. Do you have some rules around what sports?
You
So
mean
like,
with my kids?
yeah, so like one of my rules is be a great teammate, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, our our house kind of rules are be nice, be helpful, be grateful, right? So
Yeah.
so something like that.
Yeah. I mean, again, my kids are young, right? So I've got nine. Actually, I think I said my middle kid was 8. He's not, he's 7, 9, 7, and
You
6.
got so many
I can't
kids.
keep track. So our sort of guidelines, I guess I would say, or our messages to them are probably oriented around some things that hopefully we're not having to pound down also at age 16. Um, but we talk a lot about you thank your coach
Yep,
after every practice, after every
yep,
game, go say thank you to coach.
yep,
We talk about the importance of looking in the eyes. Okay. We want them to have the confidence, or at least the bravery to go to an adult and look in the eyes and say something. Um, we talk to them about being brave and trying things and working hard. Because I think in some ways, when you're a young kid, it's bravery to even work hard sometimes
sure.
when
Because
you're
it might make you
intimidated.
different. It might make you
Correct.
different. Right,
Correct.
right.
Correct. We talk a lot. I use the word respect because I think they understand it. I think at least the school they go to does a good job of talking about that as a concept. So we talk about respecting yourself in terms of things like body language. Um, and that can be how you react when a coach says, "Hey, come over here." Are you walking and moping, or are you running over and looking them in the eyes? That type of thing. We talk about respect for the coach and the team, in the sense of listening to the coach, of when the coach tells you to do something, you need to show respect and you need to do it because it's disrespectful to not listen to the coach and it's disrespectful to the team if you're the one keeping
Yeah,
other people. So I think, we talk behind closed doors, me and my wife, about, some of the challenges two competitive people have when you watch your young kids play. Um, and talking as well about reminding ourselves of the things we kind of just talked about
yeah,
on here. Because if our son has a day where he just doesn't doesn't look like soccer's his thing today.
Yep.
You know,
Gonna
it's
happen.
which is going to happen, that's where I go back to grace on both sides, but also just remind myself for the long term. And at the end of the day, I do think that's one of the hardest things as a parent is you do get wrapped up in today and you get wrapped up in this moment right now because it's what's right in front of you, and you so desperately want your kid to do well and have fun. And it's like that old cartoon of the I think the little girl who squeezes her little dog and pets it and loves it and squeezes it and squeezes it and squeezes it, and the dog's like choking to death because it's just being squeezed and hugged.
Yeah.
Um, so I think those are if you say those are the rules around our house. If I had to say anything else, the only other two things we talk about, and it's probably it's looped into the brave thing, is you need to communicate. So be somebody who talks to your team, talks to your coach. You need to communicate. And then, we just want to set a baseline of, hey, when you show up, work and have fun. I always put those two together. Work hard, have fun. Work
Yeah.
hard, have.
Well, I
Think,
think fun is around, like as you get older, the things that you work the hardest for bring you the most. And you and I have talked about this before, is the difference between having fun and being happy,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And how, something that's wrapped up in hard work and something that you put a lot into is something that makes you happy,
yeah.
right?
And that's why I always say them together. Because if you just
Right.
say to a kid, work hard, I'm like, well, that's not really the right message because they're doing this for fun and you're going to have fun. If I just say go have fun, me personally, and others may disagree with this, when our kids play a sport, I want them to go work hard at the sport. Just like when they go to school, we want them to have fun, but we also want them to work hard and learn, right? So I think that's our way of sort of saying what you're explaining there of like you find joy by working hard and having fun and putting together.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to give you some quick hitters as we kind of wrap here before the Bracken Brainbuster. And they are, um, your kid has one of those days where soccer's not really their thing that day. What's the car ride like?
I think that, and I've seen this now on the other end or felt this in a way that I know because the coach answer is obvious, right?
Yeah,
And you and I gave the coach answer all the time. Just, good job. I love to watch you play, right? That
yeah,
was always the resonated with me when I said it as a coach when asked that question. But now as a parent, having strayed over that line a few times and tried to make a comment or a coaching point, um, forget emotion or anything like that. Just talk. I love to watch you play. Love to watch you play.
yeah,
And again, they're young, and I don't want them at this age talking about where they want to go in the sport. I mean, every now and
right.
then, I hear one of my sons talking about which pro team he would play for, and I think that's hilariously awesome that they do that because it's just fun. So, but at this age, I would just say, hey, we'd love to watch you play. That was awesome.
Yeah. Um, you're at a game. Your kid doesn't play a lot. Doesn't play a lot. How do you handle that? As
I think that's a really good question because no, if you're in young teams, sometimes coaches rotate the lineup a lot. Like I try to do that. I don't like to have the concept they're nine of these guys start and these guys
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Some kids, start more than other kids, but everybody should have an experience of both. I think sometimes when a kid doesn't play as much as you would want in a game, it tends to work itself out the other way in the next game, right? So whether the next game is a tournament and it's later that day, or whether it's 2 days later or a week later, I would say if it happens multiple times in a row, it might be a time to ask a question and just say, "Hey, is there something that is going on? Is my kid struggling, or I notice they're not playing as much?" but I
So
would not.
you have a young kid, so you got to advocate for them because they can't, right? But let's
Yeah.
put you in the shoes of my kid who's 16,
Yeah.
and that's happening.
Well, I'm going to give you the answer that I think you've used a lot is the kid needs to ask the question, but then the kid needs to be prepared for the answer,
Right.
right? Which, if they're 16, I need to equip them and help them to go to the coach without me and say, what can I do to contribute more? Because you can help the kid ask the question in the right way, and not come off, the wrong way. But yeah, the kid needs to go ask that, but then the kid also should probably do some reflecting before they ask that question so that if a good coach comes back, I mean, when a kid comes to you and says, "Hey, what can I do to play more?" If you're, my answer to that most of the time is going to be,
Play better.
well, buddy, you know, why don't you reflect on how the last whatever period of time has gone? What have we talked about a lot? What have we said that you need to do? Right. And if the kid in that moment has no ideas and has no responsibility of anything they possibly could do better, that conversation is not going to go as well as if the kid comes in saying, listen, I acknowledge I got to do this and this better. I think I've made some progress on this, but maybe I'm not seeing that translate into, you know, the increase in playing time I want. But I think, helping that kid to think through that issue, reflect, and go into a conversation with a coach prepared is the best thing you can do.
This does go back to coaches' responsibilities too, is if players understand their roles and responsibilities within what you're trying to do, and you're coaching them individually, which I think is missing sometimes in our
Yep.
game,
Yep.
is the kids aren't being coached individually enough. So you have a philosophy and a way of playing that you can articulate to your team. You have roles and responsibilities of players based on the way you want to play the game. If you've communicated that, and that's where your coaching kind of goes towards, then I think it's a much easier discussion to have with a player who may not have the role that they want or the playing time that they want, and you can help them with their guided discovery, if you will, about
Well,
this.
yeah, because if you even if you take this on a tactical level or a behavioral level, I mean, the best definition of tactics that I ever heard was these are agreements of how we are going to play. Like
Right.
in this situation, we all agree this is what we're trying to achieve in this section of the field, or this is how we are going to create chances in this situation. Um, and if a player is unwilling or unable to do those things, that's going to have an impact on their playing time, right? And there's a different question of unwilling or unable. One is a lot easier to fix than the other, probably, certainly as you
Sure.
get older. But that's one of those questions that a player needs to be ready for the answer when they ask, especially as they get into those 16, 17 age groups.
Yeah. But the more you've laid out about what players need to do, and again, we've
Yeah.
talked about too about you can't really get on a player about something that you haven't told them
Yeah.
how or what they need to be doing,
We,
right?
I have like two countervailing principles on that because the one is what you just said, which is if you haven't trained it, you can't complain about it. Right. And
Right.
I think that is probably the more powerful of the two. Like if you haven't trained it, you haven't taught it, then you can't be upset, mad, or complain that they're not doing it. The other end of the principle, and I have this conversations kind of jokingly with people. So the countervailing principle to that is if I have to train and teach every single thing in the game to you, there's a problem.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Somewhere in the middle, you got to proactively learn. You got to figure some stuff out, right? But my default should be, have I trained it?
Yes.
The answer is no. Well, then you got to take responsibility to train it. But at some point, there's also a responsibility on the player, especially as they get older, of like, there's some things you can just figure out that I shouldn't have to say, well, I didn't actually tell you that yet, but I kind of assumed it was obvious.
Yeah. All right. So last couple, talk about the negativity or the view of parents coaching from the sidelines.
I think generally that The concern of parents coaching from the sidelines is the the parent who just doesn't stop talking, and they're telling people what to do, mostly their kid, but over and over and over. In theory, telling people, good job. It's not very high informational quality, right? But it is a reward for behavior. You could argue saying good job is coaching from the sidelines. Shoot it. This is coaching from the sidelines, right? Nice shot. Again, low informational quality, but it's rewarding behavior. Like all those things are fine. I think what we're talking about in coaching from the sidelines is when you're yelling to your kid to do something. First of all, the younger they are, the more you see the impact, right? Is that they
Yeah,
just turn and they look at you, and now they're
yeah,
not even looking at the game. But the other part is there's a lot of people who say things that unintentionally and maybe naively, because it might be even just wrong, but they're contradictory to what the player has just been asked to do from the coach. And you're putting the kid in a really difficult spot of, do I listen to mom or dad or do I listen to coach? And even if they're supportive, if the kid is turning to you on the sideline instead of playing the game or looking to the coach, I think you're making the experience cognitively more difficult and
yeah.
maybe emotionally more difficult. So I don't, I think of that rule. Some people think of that rule as like parents should shut up and they should say, I don't think that's at all the point. I think the point is like, let's not put any more obstacles and roadblocks up for the kid who's trying to think and for the kid who's trying to enjoy the game.
Let's go the dangers of comparing your player to other players on the team.
Ooh, worst. That's the worst.
It's the worst.
That's the worst. They're all different. They're all going to, by the way, the younger they are, the more that is true also, but they're all different. That kid's left-footed, you're not. That might be a material difference in why somebody's got certain opportunities and you don't, right? That kid is fast, but he's not super technical. You're not fast, but you're super technical. They're very different situations, right? This kid is late every day. This kid is late once. This
Right.
kid played 10 straight games really well and then had a stinker. This kid is 5-5. Like there is almost no situation in which comparing your child to another child is positive and ends up in a good position because it almost always points out to things that either you cannot control or you're not aware of. And it takes all of the focus away from the kid and being self-empowered to focus on their own strengths and, correct or minimize their own weaknesses and take control of their environment. And it puts it all on the outside. And so I think that is almost would be in the top five. I think if I go back, I would say
Yeah.
that would be
Don't do that,
that'd be an
basically.
honorable mention of don't compare your kid to somebody else.
Yeah, right. Last one. The intense anxiety that we can create around college showcases and college recruiting.
I used to say to P, I say I used to, I still say these things. I don't know why I say I used to. Um, when you're playing at a showcase or when anyone's watching, you should spare zero emotional or cognitive energy on what's happening on the sideline. And you see this at ECNL events, right? The kid makes a mistake and they take a look to the sideline to see who saw it, right? Or they do something good and they do the same thing. And again, you go back to any amount of energy or focus that's not on the game means you are now not involved in the game, which means you're probably going to underperform at some level. But the other thing I think is just equally like impactful in a different way is that if you play really well and feel like you played really well and somebody watching doesn't think you played very well, that's their problem and you wouldn't want to go to that school anyway.
Correct. Correct.
At the end of the day, if you play and get better and keep working and playing the way you enjoy playing and the way your team is asking you to play to your point of tactics and agreements, the right school who values that will find you. And in the meantime, when you make a mistake, do what every soccer player is supposed to do when you make a mistake, which is just move on to the next thing and fix it.
Yeah. Oh, I got one more. Sorry.
One more.
Rankings.
What kind of rankings?
I don't know. Team rankings, player rankings, rankings.
Rankings. Don't like rankings. I'll just, I don't want to,
Rankings are
I
stupid.
don't like rankings. You know what the kind of rankings that, I think will be helpful and interesting is as we as you are aware of, as we move down some of the road of some of the technology integration that we're talking about, where
Yeah.
you can have data to sort of do things like rank who plays more forward passes into the final third accurately. Who
Yeah.
does that more than anybody else? Who are the top players of that? Who are the top players in 1v1 challenges? Right? I think
It's
those types of
objective.
rankings,
It's objective data.
objective data that is also tied to performance in the game. So subjective rankings, useless. Rankings of things that are not tied to the game, pretty useless.
Yeah.
Data and using data to evaluate performance and identify strengths, really good. Very rarely done, but I think it's a new horizon we're coming to on that, Doug, because I think that time is coming where we can start to do that as coaches, clubs, leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know how we summarize this.
It's very philosophical, Doug. Good.
Was
That was
very,
a good set of discussion points from
yes.
my perspective, at least.
Well, I led the discussion, so I feel that way as well, and I thank you for your kindness. All right, Bracken Brainbuster. I don't know, Jacob comes on now and joins us for this part of it. My question is, what's one thing you wish every ECNL parent knew?
Don't make me answer that first. You've already put me on the
What
spot
I put
enough.
Jacob on it. Like, what's one? He look at him. He's got his ECNL polo on. He's got his ECNL hat on. He looks good. He looks the part. What is one thing?
Look good, play good. You remember that? Look good, play good.
That's right. Absolutely.
Look
He's got
good,
the beard.
play
The
good,
beard is
podcast
solid.
good.
Trim the beard down. It's getting a little mountain manish.
Fair.
All right, Jacob, what do you got?
One thing that every ECNL
Now,
parent should
hold on, before you say this, I'm not trying to hijack you here, but you come at this from an interesting perspective because you do a lot of writing and a lot of the press releases and a lot of the stuff that goes out publicly to our people. You produce the podcast, so that could be an interesting angle.
I think one thing that every parent needs to come into the ECNL,
parent. Yeah, great.
every ECNL parent,
Yeah,
is that the referee is not against your team. That the referees hold no bias. They do not care who wins and loses. That they are going to make the calls that they think are correct. And you are coming from it from a biased perspective of thinking that everything positive for your team needs to happen and everything negative needs to happen for the other team.
Well, I mean, if you're a jerk to them for the first half of the game, they might then hold a bias, and you wouldn't, you probably couldn't blame them. But yeah,
right.
Fair.
But there's no grand conspiracy that this ref is out against your team, that that they're playing favorites with the other team or whatever. It's very easy to get caught up in the moment and be frustrated, but the referees are not against your team.
Okay. I like it. We got a little referee stuff in there.
That's fair.
All right.
That might be the best one. I don't know.
That's a good one.
Are you going to beat that, Doug?
Am I going to beat it? Well, I get to go last, so I hear everybody's first. Christian, what's one thing you wish every ECNL parent knew?
I don't know. You had me kind of going philosophical today.
That's good. That's fine.
So I'm gonna end in that note as well, and say that it'll be over faster than you think. And I say that because if you have that in the back of your head, I think it'll help guide you through all of the experiences a little bit better. But it'll be over faster than you think. You see this. We see this every year. The last time a U18 team is at an ECNL or an ECNL Regional League event, and it is one of those moments where the kids know it's the last. The parents know it's the last. Everybody says the same thing. I can't believe it's over already.
Yeah.
So it's over faster than you think. So bear that in mind.
Okay. I'm gonna go totally different. I wish every ECNL parent knew, and this is not to be I don't know, this is gonna sound really like Yeah,
Uh-oh.
this is going to be, it might sound kind of douchey, but I don't mean it to be. I wish every ECNL parent knew how painstakingly we thought about every player's experience when we do anything in this league. Like we really spend like countless hours time just trying to think about how to make this better for players. And, I don't think people understand that. And we have, whatever, 40 plus people doing the same thing. Right. And working for that.
I'll expand that to all the people in clubs as well. I mean, there's
Yes.
a lot of people working, and there's mistakes made, and things can be done better all the time. But there's a lot of people that it takes a village to raise a soccer player in a soccer team, in a soccer club, in a soccer league.
Yes. And I think truly the guiding principle or the thought behind that is just to make it better. Like just try to make it better. And I think sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle because we're doing a lot of stuff and we're putting a lot of stuff out there and all that. But truly, that's really what we're trying to do is trying to make it better. And that's the way we think about it.
Yep.
So I don't know that I wasn't meaning that to be a pat on the back, but
You know what? I think most parents would say that they're trying to make it better too.
100%.
And then we
I
go
think
back
every
and
parent
give
would
some
say
grace.
I'm doing the best I can.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. Good. Open the season.
Good talk.
Do's
Welcome
and
to
don'ts.
2026 to everybody. 2026, 27 season.
New year, new age groups.
Everything's starting.
It'll be different teams and stuff. That'll be cool. It'll be
gonna
interesting
be
to
fun.
see how it unfolds. I'm excited
It's gonna
about
be
it.
fun.
Yeah. So
All right.
yeah, good chat. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another, I'm sure, gripping episode of this has been a couple in a row where it's just me and you.
I know. We
3
might
in a
have to bring
row.
somebody on. Might
Yeah,
have to bring
probably.
somebody on. There's a teaser.
Yeah, it might be time.
All right.
Might be time.
Breaking the line. Out.